What if China stopped selling to America? Imagine waking up tomorrow morning. You grab your phone. You check the battery. 2%. You reach for your charger. And then you remember something terrifying. China has stopped selling anything to America. No electronics, no batteries, no machinery, no countless everyday products and components. And suddenly, America has discovered the true meaning of out of stock. For decades, America and China built one of the biggest economic relationships in history. America buys, China manufactures. America complains about the price. China manufactures more. It's basically a relationship where one person keeps saying, "Can you make it cheaper?" And the other says, "Sure." But what happens if China suddenly says, "Nope, we're done"? No warning, no negotiation, just good luck, America.
You underestimate
Let's find
my
out.
power.
Day 1. It's 8 a.m. People wake up completely unaware that the global economy has just entered panic mode. Someone orders a new laptop. Unavailable. Someone wants a gaming console. Unavailable. Someone needs replacement electronics. Unavailable. And then someone walks into a store and asks, "Do you have this in stock?" The employee slowly looks at them and says, "We have one." The customer gets excited. "Great!" The employee continues, "It's the display model." And suddenly, that display model is looking very attractive. Meanwhile, American companies start calling their suppliers. "Hey, where's our shipment?" Silence. "Hello?" Still silence. Then the supplier finally responds. China stopped exporting. And executives everywhere experience the corporate version of a heart attack. Because companies don't just buy finished products from China. They also buy parts. Tiny components, electronic components, industrial equipment, batteries, chemicals, machinery. Things consumers never even think about. So even an American product made in America could suddenly have a problem because one tiny component came from China. It's like making an American burger and discovering the burger is American, the restaurant is American, the chef is American, but the one thing holding the refrigerator together came from China. Okay, maybe not literally, but you get the idea. The electronics problem. Now let's talk about electronics. Phones, computers, televisions, gaming devices, smart home gadgets, batteries, and countless components. The United States has plenty of technology companies, but technology doesn't magically appear because someone owns a laptop.
Okay.
You need factories, supply chains, raw materials, components, assembly, transportation, and all those boring things that become extremely exciting the moment they disappear. Imagine America suddenly trying to replace decades of Chinese manufacturing underwater. The government says, "Don't worry, we'll make everything ourselves." The factories respond, "Okay, give us a few years." America, "We need it tomorrow." Factories, "Oh." That's the problem. You can't build a massive manufacturing ecosystem with a motivational speech. Then comes the rare earth problem. And now things get more serious. China plays a major role in the global rare earth supply chain. Rare earth materials are important for things like electronics, electric vehicles, magnets, aerospace technology, and defense systems. So if China suddenly cuts exports, America doesn't just lose cheap consumer products. It could also face problems getting some critical industrial materials. And now Washington is having a very different meeting. Nobody is asking, "How do we make phones cheaper?" They're asking, "Who has the stuff we need?" Australia? Vietnam? Japan? India? Canada? Brazil? Everyone suddenly becomes America's best friend. Countries that haven't received a phone call from Washington in years are suddenly getting, "Hey buddy, how are you? We should talk." America fights back. The United States wouldn't simply sit there. America would respond. It would try to increase domestic manufacturing, build new factories, find alternative suppliers, increase production in friendly countries, and probably throw a lot of money at the problem. The goal? Reduce dependence on China. But there's one tiny problem. Time. Factories take years. Supply chains take years. Workers need training. New suppliers need certification. Transportation networks need to change. And businesses don't particularly enjoy waiting 5 years to receive something they used to receive next Tuesday. So prices would probably rise, and consumers would notice. Imagine walking into a store. You see a $900 television. You ask, why is it so expensive? The salesperson says, China. You say, but China isn't selling it anymore. The salesperson says, exactly. China gets hurt too. But here's the plot twist. China wouldn't simply win, because China also needs America. The United States is one of China's biggest trading partners. American consumers buy enormous amounts of goods. American companies buy Chinese products and components. American demand supports Chinese factories and businesses. So if China suddenly stops selling to America, Chinese companies lose a massive customer. Factories could slow down. Workers could be affected. Exporters would scramble to find new markets. And suddenly China has its own problem. Imagine a Chinese factory manager saying, "Good news! We stopped selling to America!" Everyone celebrates. Then the accountant walks in. Who are we selling to now? Silence. Oh. The global domino effect. And this is where things get really interesting. Because the world economy isn't just America and China. It's connected. A company in America might buy components from China. A factory in Mexico might use those components. A European company might buy the finished product. A Japanese company might supply another part. And suddenly, one decision creates problems everywhere. Shipping routes change. Companies search for new suppliers. Prices increase. Factories move. Governments introduce new trade policies. And businesses start asking one terrifying question. What if we depend too much on one country? Countries like India, Vietnam, Mexico, Japan, South Korea, and Australia could suddenly become much more important. Companies would race to build alternative supply chains. Factories could move. Investment could increase. New jobs could appear. Basically, China leaves the group chat, and suddenly everyone else gets a job interview. America would adapt. Here's the thing. America has enormous financial resources. It has advanced technology. It has major companies. It has a huge consumer market. And it has allies around the world. So America wouldn't collapse overnight. Your phone wouldn't suddenly disappear. The lights wouldn't go out. People wouldn't immediately start fighting over the last television at Walmart. Well, okay, maybe that could happen. But eventually, America would adapt. It would build more factories, find new suppliers, develop new technologies, and spread its supply chains across multiple countries. It would probably become more expensive, but also more diversified. And China would adapt too. It would find new customers, strengthen trade with other countries, increase domestic consumption, and search for new markets. So after years of chaos, the global economy could eventually settle into something very different. The biggest change. And this is the real consequence. The world would learn one enormous lesson. Globalization is convenient until the supply chain breaks. For decades, companies optimized for one thing: cheap and efficient production. But after a major China-America trade cutoff, companies would probably care much more about security. They'd ask, can we get this from 3 countries instead of 1? Can we make this ourselves? Can we survive if one supplier disappears? And that could reshape global trade for decades. Final twist. So, what happens if China stops selling to America? America doesn't collapse. China doesn't magically win. Instead, both sides lose. Consumers pay more. Companies scramble. Factories move. New countries become important. And the global economy slowly rebuilds itself around a completely different idea. Don't depend on one place for everything. Because the biggest surprise isn't that America needs China, or that China needs America. It's that the entire world needs both of them to keep the machine running. And if China ever looked at America and said, "We're not selling anymore," America might respond, "Fine, we'll make it ourselves." China, good luck. America, thanks. Then 5 minutes later, someone in Washington quietly asks, "Wait, who makes the cheap charging cables?" And that is when the real panic begins. Welcome to MysteryVerse.